Welcome once again to the Port Washington Public Library's virtual stage here. And I'm very delighted that we're able to do this evening. Our program this evening is being presented by Kate Beckman. And Kate is familiar to our audiences as an actor, director, cabaret performance, and as Nan Edwards in the musical Fair Liberty's Call, which, as you know, is presented at the library. Written by Port Washington resident Pam Meadows. So we are here this evening to enjoy a holiday potpourri. It is a kaleidoscope of holiday-themed readings to reminisce, tickle, and inspire in celebration of the holiday season. So without further ado, please welcome to the library's virtual stage, Kate Beckman.
Christmas is for children. At least that's what they say. It's a time of wide-eyed wonder, a magic holiday when candy canes and gingerbread fill tummies with delight, and little sleepyheads try hard to stay up through the night. Yes, Christmas is for children. Anyone will tell you so. The twinkling colored lights on trees make youngsters just glow. Each package and each stocking is approached with childish joy, and toys bring squeals of laughter from each girl and boy. Yes, Christmas is for children. All they say is true. How wonderful that at Christmas time, grown-ups are children too. However you celebrate your holiday season, most likely you have memories from holidays past. I think my interest and love of baking may have started as a child one Christmas when Santa brought me a child-sized play kitchen that had to be assembled. One day during our holiday break, my brothers and I went with my mother to visit some relatives. We weren't quite sure how we were related or where this place, Woodhaven, was, but Dad stayed at home to assemble my kitchen. Dad could do anything. And when I returned home later that day, I found my child-sized kitchen, complete with a sink that would pump a limited amount of water and burners that glowed with batteries. And I started my culinary creations with toy pots and pans and plastic food. Floyd Skloot shares a similar experience in Some Assembly Required. 3 words that have and may continue to strike fear in many a parent or guardian. My 5-year-old daughter knew exactly what she wanted for Christmas of 1977 and told me so. Yes, she would still like the pink and green umbrella with the clear top she'd been talking about. Books, long flannel nightgown, fuzzy slippers, fine. But really there was only one thing that mattered: a Barbie townhouse with all the accessories. This was a surprise. Rebecca was not a Barbie girl, preferred stuffed animals to dolls, and wasn't drawn to play in a structured environment. Always a make up the rules, design your own world, do it my way kid. Maybe I thought the point wasn't Barbie, but a house, a domicile she could claim for herself since we already moved 5 times during her brief life. Next day I stopped at the mall. The huge Barbie townhouse box was festooned with exclamations. 3 floors of high-styled fun. Elevator can stop on all floors. Some assembly required. Some assembly required. Oh boy. My track record for assembling things was miserable. Brooklyn born, I was raised in apartment buildings in a family that didn't build things. A few years earlier, I'd spent 1 week assembling a 6-foot-tall jungle gym from a kit containing so many parts. I spent the first 4 hours sorting and weeping, and the last 2 hours trying to figure out why there were so many leftover pieces. The day after I finished building it, as if to remind me of my limitations, a tornado touched down close enough to scatter the jungle gym across an acre of field. I assembled the Barbie townhouse on Christmas Eve, making it level, keeping the columns from looking like they'd melted and been refrozen, and getting that elevator to work were almost more than I could manage. And building it in a curse-free silence so my daughter would continue sleeping, if in fact she was sleeping, added a layer of challenge. By dawn, I was done. Shortly thereafter, my daughter walked into the living room, stuffed bear tucked under her arm, feigning shock and looking as tired as I did. Her surprise may have been sham, but her delight was utterly genuine and moves me to this day, 34 years later. Rebecca had spurred me to do something I didn't think I could do. It was for her, and like so much of the privilege of being her father, it brought me further outside myself and let me overcome my doubts and capacities. Now that I think about it, there probably was real surprise in her first glimpse of her Barbie townhouse, not perhaps at the gift itself, but that it had been built and remained standing in the morning light. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe she was surprised because she planned on building the thing herself. In 1939, a humble, soft-spoken copywriter for Montgomery Ward wrote a holiday story for the company's children, and 2.5 million copies of the pamphlet were given away. 10 years later, Robert L. May's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was set to music by May's brother-in-law, Johnny Marks, and made famous by the singing cowboy Gene Autry. May was gratified that children around the world responded to the story of the lonely little deer who found happiness when he gladly accepted a chance to help. In celebration of the poem's 75th anniversary, the original book was reprinted. When I saw it, it immediately brought back childhood memories, especially the original 1939 illustrations. 'Twas the day before Christmas, and all through the hills, the reindeer were playing, enjoying the spills of skating and coasting and climbing the willows and hopscotch and leapfrog, protected by pillows. While every so often they'd stop to call names at one little deer not allowed in their games. Ha ha, look at Rudolph, his nose is a sight. It's red as a big, twice as big, twice as bright. While Rudolph just wept, what else could he do? He knew that the things they were saying were true. Where most reindeers' noses are brownish and tiny, poor Rudolph's was red, very large and quite shiny. Although he was lonesome, he always was good, obeying his parents as good reindeers should. That's why, on this day, Rudolph almost felt playful. He hoped that from Santa, soon driving his sleigh full of presents and candy and dollies and toys for good little animals, good girls and boys, he'd get just as much, and this is what pleased him, as happier, handsomer reindeer who teased him. So as night and a fog hid the world like a hood, he went to bed hopeful, for he knew he'd been good. While way, way up north on this same foggy night, old Santa was packing his sleigh for his flight. "This fog," he complained, "will be hard to get through." He shook his round head, and his tummy shook too. "Without any stars or a moon as our compass, this extra dark night is quite likely to swamp us. To keep from collisions, we'll have to fly slow. To keep our direction, we'll have to fly low. We'll steer by street lamps and houses tonight in order to finish before it gets light. Just think how the boys' and girls' faith would be shaken if we didn't reach them before they awaken. Come Dasher, come Dancer, come Prancer and Vixen, come Comet, come Cupid, come Donner and Blitzen. Be quick with your suppers, get hitched in a hurry. You too will find fog, a delay, and a worry." And Santa was right, as he usually is. The fog was as thick as a white soda's fizz. Just not getting lost needed all Santa's skill, with street signs and numbers more difficult still. He tangled in treetops again and again and barely missed hitting a tri-motored plane. He still made good speed with much twisting and turning, as long as the street lamps and house lights were burning. At each house, first noting the people who lived there, he'd quickly select the right presents to give there. By midnight, however, the last light had fled, for even big people had then gone to bed. Through dark streets and houses, old Santa fared poorly. He now picked the presents more slowly, less surely. He really was worried, for what would he do if folks started waking before he was through? The air was still foggy, the night dark and drear, when Santa arrived at the home of the deer. The first reindeer bedroom was so very black, he tripped on a rug and fell flat on his back. So dark that he had to move close to the bed and squint very hard at the sleeping deer's head before he could choose the right kind of a toy, a doll for a girl or a train for a boy. But all this took time and filled Santa with gloom, while slowly he groped toward the next reindeer's room. The door he just opened when, to his surprise, a dim but quite definite light met his eyes. The lamp wasn't burning. The glow came instead from something that lay at the head of the bed. And there lay, but wait now, what would you suppose? The glowing, you guessed it, was Rudolph's red nose. So this room was easy. This one little light let Santa pick quickly the gifts that were right. How happy he was till he went out the door. The rest of the house was as black as before. So black that it made every step a dark mystery. And then came the greatest idea in all history. He went back to Rudolph and started to shake him, of course, very gently, in order to wake him. And Rudolph could scarcely believe his own eyes. You just can imagine his joy and surprise at seeing who stood there so real and so near, while telling the tale we've already told here. Poor old Santa's tale of distress and delay, the fog and the darkness and losing the way, the horrible fear that some children might waken before his complete Christmas trip had been taken. And you, he told Rudolph, may yet save the day. Your wonderful forehead may yet pave the way. I need you, said Santa, to help me tonight, to lead all my deer on the rest of our flight. And Rudolph broke out into such a big grin, it almost connected his ears to his chin. A note to his folks, he dashed off in a hurry. I've gone to help Santa, he wrote. Do not worry. So Rudolph pranced out through the door very gay and took his proud place at the head of the sleigh. The rest of the night, well, what would you guess? Old Santa's idea was a brilliant success. In spite of the fog, they flew quickly and low and made such good use of the wonderful glow. While as for houses and streets with a sign on them, they merely flew close so that Rudolph could shine on them. To tell who lived where and just what to give whom, they'd fly by each window and peek in each room. It all went so fast that before it was day, the very last present was given away. The very last stocking was filled to the top, just as the sun was preparing to pop. This sun woke the reindeer in Rudolph's hometown. They found the short message that he'd written down, then gathered outside to await his return. And were they excited, astonished to learn that Rudolph, the ugliest deer of them all, Rudolph the Red-Nosed, bashful and small, the funny-faced fellow they always called names and practically never allowed in their games, was now to be envied by all far and near. For no greater honor can come to a deer than riding with Santa and guiding his sleigh, the #1 job on the #1 day. The sleigh and its reindeer soon came into view, and Rudolph still led them as downward they flew. Oh boy, was he proud as they came to a landing right where his handsomer playmates were standing. They felt even sorrier that they had been bad when Santa said, "Rudolph, I never have had a dear quite so brave or as brilliant as you at fighting black fog and guiding me through. I hope you'll continue to keep us from grief on future dark trips as Commander-in-Chief." But Rudolph just blushed from his head to his toes until his whole fur was as red as his nose. The crowd first applauded, then started to screech, "Hooray for our Rudolph, and we want a speech." But Rudolph was bashful, despite being a hero, and tired. His sleep on the trip totaled 0. So that's why his speech was just brief and not bright. "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." And that's why whenever it's foggy and gray, it's Rudolph the Red-Nosed who guides Santa's sleigh. Be listening this Christmas, but don't make a peep, because that late at night, children should be asleep. The very first sound that you'll hear on the roof, provided there's fog, will be Rudolph's small hoof. And soon after that, if you're still as a mouse, you may hear a swish as he flies around the house and gives enough light to give Santa a view of you and your room. And when they're all through, you may hear them call as they drive out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." For years, I was unhappy with most of the gifts I received for my birthday or other occasions. I put a lot of thought into the gifts I gave to others, and it seemed to me that they did not return the favor. Didn't those closest to me know that I didn't enjoy reading romance novels, or that gadgets for my car would go unused? And surely they should have figured out that if they wanted to get me a food gift, it had to be chocolate. But no. The stream of gifts that I put in the back of my dresser drawer, gave away, or sometimes even threw away, continued. I didn't speak up. I didn't want to hurt the feelings of those I loved and cared about, but my resentment began to grow. I felt like the most important people in my life didn't really know me, or maybe didn't care enough about me to think about my likes and dislikes. One day I was unwrapping a gift from my teenage son, a blouse more stylish than I felt comfortable wearing. My first thought when I peeled back the tissue paper and saw the blouse was that it was just another candidate to hang in the back of the closet. But when I looked up at Jason's face and saw him smiling at me in anticipation, I finally got it. It was an epiphany that made me readjust the attitude of a lifetime in a moment. "What do you think, Mom? I thought it would look so nice on you." "It's beautiful, honey." In that moment of clarity, I realized that Jason saw me as someone who would be open to receiving and wearing something more elegant than my usual attire. He wanted to give me something special. "Try it on. I want to see how it looks." I know just the skirt to try it with. When I re-entered the living room with the outfit on, Jason was waiting. "It looked just like I thought it would. It looks real pretty on you, Mom." I tried to stop the tears that were welling in the corner of my eyes. "Thank you, honey. It's a beautiful blouse. I can tell you put a lot of thought in picking it out." "You're welcome, Mom. Glad you like it." Jason continued to smile as he gave me another quick hug before he walked away. Jason probably wondered why I was so emotional over the gift. He had no way of knowing that he'd given me much more than the blouse. I began to think back on the gifts I'd rejected as a bad fit for me and grasped the fact that maybe the people who gave me the gifts saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They may have thought I was more romantic or more adventurous or saw me as a better cook than I gave myself credit for. I began to see myself as others saw me. That opened me up to change and growth. In the years since I received Jason's present, I have rarely felt disappointed when a gift doesn't match my interests or desires. I go into holidays with no expectation of receiving anything, and then everything I receive becomes a blessing. The idea that someone thinks of me and spends precious time, thought, and money to purchase and wrap a gift is more than enough for me. It is amazing how much more pleasant each occasion is and how much more I appreciate my family and friends since this insight. There is definitely something special about receiving a gift that is perfectly suited for you. But I have found it is just as special to receive all gifts with an open mind and a grateful heart and spirit. Not all gift recipients experience the epiphany that Nancy Hatton shared in her The Gift of Change, as evident in this, The 12 Thank You Letters of Christmas, adapted by Jim Hoare. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. December 26th. Dear John, I went to the door today and found a partridge in a pear tree. What a thoroughly delightful gift. I couldn't have been more surprised. With deepest love and devotion, Agnes. 2 turtle doves, December 27th. Dearest John, today a delivery man brought you a very sweet gift. Just imagine, 2 turtle doves. I'm just delighted at your very thoughtful gift. They are just adorable. All my love, Agnes. 3 French hens, December 28th. Dear John, aren't you the extravagant one? Now, I really must protest. I don't deserve such generosity. 3 French hens? They are just darling. But I must insist, you've been too kind. Love, Agnes. 4 calling birds, December 29th. Dear John, today the pet store delivered 4 calling birds. Now, really, they are beautiful, but don't you think enough is enough? You're being too romantic. Affectionately, Agnes. 5 golden rings, December 30th. Dearest John, aren't you the clever one? Imagine my surprise when I heard that you were sending me 5 golden rings. I couldn't have been more delighted. My face just lit with joy. That is, until I saw them. And I discovered that you managed to find the one type of bird that I never knew existed. The golden ring bird? For your information, the rest of the world calls them ring-necked pheasants. All those squawking and chirping birds are beginning to get on my nerves. Thanks a lot, Agnes. 6 geese a-laying, December 31st. Dear bird boy, I opened my door today and there were actually 6 geese a-laying on my front steps. The geese are huge. Where will I keep them? The neighbors are complaining and I can't sleep through all this racket. Please stop. Thanks for nothing, Agnes. 7 swans are swimming, January 1st. Dear John, what's with you and these damn birds? 7 swans are swimming? Is this some kind of a sick joke? There's bird crap all over the house and they never stop with the racket. I can't sleep at night and I'm a nervous wreck. It's not funny, John. Stop it with the birds. I'm not kidding. No longer affectionately yours, Agnes. 8 maids a-milking, January 2nd. Okay, Buster, you're really pushing it. I think I prefer the birds. What am I going to do with 8 maids a-milking? It's not enough with all those birds and the maids, but what am I supposed to do with 8 cows? Leave me alone, Agnes. 9 ladies dancing, January 3rd. What is wrong with you? Are you some kind of a sadist? Now there are 9 ladies dancing all over my house, weaving in and out of the birds, knocking over buckets of milk and kicking the cows and the maids. They never stop. And when the cows get upset, they run around stepping all over the birds. Everyone is screaming or making noise, and the neighbors have started a petition to evict me. You'll get yours, Agnes. 10 lords are leaping, January 4th. Listen to me, you jerk. There are 10 lords a-leaping all over the maids and the dancers. I can't keep them off of each other. The birds are all in a panic, and with all the racket, the cows can't sleep and have developed diarrhea. The commissioner of buildings has subpoenaed me to show cause why my house shouldn't be condemned. I swear I'll get you, one who means it. 11 pipers piping, January 5th. You psychotic stalker. What did I ever do to you, John? Have you ever heard bagpipes live? One is loud enough, but they were 11 pipers piping live in my house at 8 a.m. this morning. That is, until they saw the ladies, and I use that term loosely. And suddenly the pipers started fighting, the leaping lords to get at the dancers and the maids. 25 birds, 1 cow, and no longer the leaping lord are now dead. They were trampled in the insanity. I hope you're satisfied, you rotten, vicious swine, your sworn enemy, Agnes. On the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 12 drummers drumming, January 6th. From the law offices of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe, dear sir. This is to acknowledge your latest gift of 12 drummers drumming, which you have inflicted upon our client, Agnes Mendelstein. The destruction was total. All future correspondence should come to our attention. If you should attempt to reach Miss Mendelstein at the Happy Dale Sanitarium, the attendants have instructions to shoot you on sight. Please find attached a warrant for your arrest. Law offices, Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Edith Sitwell believes winter is the time for comfort, for good food and warmth, for the touch of a friendly hand, and for a talk beside the fire. It is the time for home, especially good food shared with family and loved ones. Such a bustle ensued that you might have thought a goose the rarest of all birds, a feathered phenomenon, to which a black swan was a matter of course. And in truth, it was something very like it in that house. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy, ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Martha dusted the hot plates. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. The 2 young Cratchits set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves, and mounting guard upon their posts, crammed spoons into their mouths, lest they should shriek for goose before their turn came to be helped. At last the dishes were set on and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause, as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it in the breast. But when she did, and when the long expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight issued forth all around the board, and even Tiny Tim, excited by the 2 young Cratchits, beat on the table with the handle of his knife and feebly cried, "Hurrah!" There never was such a goose. Bob said he didn't believe there ever was such a goose cooked. Its tenderness and flavor, size and cheapness were the themes of universal admiration. Eked out by applesauce and mashed potatoes, it was a sufficient dinner for the whole family. Indeed, as Mrs. Cratchit said with great delight, surveying one small atom of a bone upon the dish, they hadn't ate it all at last. Yet everyone had had enough, and the youngest Cratchits in particular were steeped in sage and onion to the eyebrows. But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Mrs. Cratchit left the room alone, too nervous to bear witnesses, to take the pudding up and bring it in. Suppose it should not be done enough. Suppose it should break in turning out. Suppose somebody should have got over the wall of the backyard and stolen it while they were merry with the goose, a supposition at which the two young Cratchits became livid. All sorts of horrors were supposed. Hurrah! A great deal of steam. The pudding was out of the copper. A smell like a washing day. That was the cloth. A smell like an eating house and a pastry cook's next door to each other, with the laundresses next door to that. That was the pudding. In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed but smiling proudly, with the pudding, like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in ignited brandy and bedight with Christmas holly stuck in the top. Oh, what a wonderful pudding! Bob Cratchit said, and calmly too, that he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage. Mrs. Cratchit said that now the weight was off her mind, she would confess she had had her doubts about the quantity of flour. Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought it was at all a small pudding for a large family. It would have been flat heresy to do so. Any Cratchit would have blushed to hint at such a thing. At last dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. The compound in the jug being tasted and considered perfect, apples and oranges were put upon the table, and a shovelful of chestnuts on the fire. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth in what Bob Cratchit called a circle, and at Bob Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass, 2 tumblers, and a custard cup without a handle. These held the hot stuff from the jug, however, as well as golden goblets would have done. And Bob served it out with beaming looks, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and crackled noisily. Then Bob proposed, "A Merry Christmas to us all, my dears. God bless us all," which all the family echoed. "God bless us, everyone," said Tiny Tim, the last of all. P.G. Wodehouse offers his Another Christmas Carol in deference to Mr. Dickens' classic. The subject of dieting had come up in the bar parlor of the Anger's Rest, and wondered how fellows who were on a diet managed at Christmas. Precisely the problem which presented itself to Egbert Mulliner. One day he felt a funny feeling in the upper left side of his chest and went to see a medical friend of his, a Dr. Potter. Egbert had started life as a bouncing baby, had grown into a bulbous boy, and was now, in his 42nd year, a man beneath whom weighing machines quivered like aspens. And what can I do for you? I don't think it's anything much, Bill, but I thought I'd better get a medical opinion. It's sort of a pain. Well, not a pain exactly. More of a kind of funny feeling up here on the left side of my chest. It catches me when I breathe. Don't breathe. All right. Let's have a look at you. Ha. Hmm. Yes, just as I supposed. You're too fat. This surprised Egbert. He had sometimes thought that he might be an ounce or two overweight, but he would never have applied such an adjective to himself. Would you call me fat? I'd go further. I'd call you grossly obese. And the fat's accumulating round your heart. We'll have to get at least a stone off you if we don't. What happens if we don't? All that fuss and bother of buying wreaths and turning out for your funeral. Good heavens, Bill. It's no use saying good heavens. For a year, you've got to knock off all starchy foods, all rich foods. In fact, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you knocked off food altogether. It was a crushing blow, but there was good stuff in Egbert Mulliner. Though nothing could make such a regime agreeable, he was confident that he could go through with it. It was not as if he was not used to roughing it. He had often been at cocktail parties where the supply of sausages on those little wooden sticks had run out, and a sort of reserve strength pulled him through. His upper lip was stiff as he left the consulting room. It remained so till he was in the street, when all the stiffening suddenly went out of it. He remembered his Aunt Serena, with whom, as usual, he would be taking dinner on the night of Christmas Day. As Egbert, from boyhood up, had shown no signs of possessing any intelligence whatsoever, a place had been found for him in the civil service. But though he could drink tea at 4 o'clock as well as the next man, he had not really liked being in the country's service, however civil. What he wanted was to buy a partnership in a friend's interior decorating and antique selling firm. And this could be done only if his Aunt Serena, who was extraordinarily rich, put up the money. He had often asked her to do so, and she had refused. He had planned to make one last appeal on Christmas night when she would be mellowed by food and drink. But in what frame of mind would a touchy hostess, who prided herself on the lavishness of her hospitality, be to finance a nephew who refused every course of the dinner she had taken such pains to assemble? 2 minutes later, he was back in Dr. Potter's consulting room. Listen, Bill, you only kidding just now about that diet, weren't you? I was not. What would happen if I ate caviar, turtle soup, turkey, plum pudding, mince pies, biscuit tortoni, hot rolls with butter, and crystallized fruit, and drank hock, champagne, port, and liqueurs? Would I die? Of course, but what a jolly death. Were you thinking of doing that? It's what I shall have to do when I have Christmas dinner at me aunt's. If I skip a single course, she will never speak to me again, and bang will go my interior decorating partnership. Dr. Potter listened attentively. Huh? You're sure that abstinence on your part would offend this aunt of whom you speak? She would never forgive me. Then you must get out of it. I can't get out of it. You could if you had a good excuse. She could hardly blame you if, for instance, you had the bubonic plague. I could inject a serum into you which would give you all the bubonic plague a heart could desire. What's bubonic plague like? I don't know if it's like anything, except, of course, bubonic plague. Is it painful? I've never had it myself, but I'm told it gives you sort of a funny feeling. Don't you come out in spots? I believe that is the usual procedure. I don't think I'll have it. Then have an accident. What sort of accident? The choice is wide, but perhaps the simplest thing would be get run over by a taxi cab. Have you ever been run over by a taxi cab? Dozens of times. Did it hurt? Just a kind of ticking sensation. That does seem the best thing to do. Much the best. And there's no need to actually get run over. I can just step off into the road and stick a leg out. Exactly. The charioteer will do the rest. Christmas Day dawned with its sprinkling of snow, and as it progressed, Egbert's determination to follow the doctor's advice became solidified. As he walked up to his aunt's house, he was encouraged to see there was no stint of the necessary vehicles. They whizzed to and fro in dozens, and to extend a leg in front of one of them was simply a matter of making one's selection. He rejected the first that came along because he disliked the driver's mustache, the second because the cab was the wrong color, and he was just about to step in front of a third when he paused, with leg in air. He had suddenly remembered that his aunt's birthday was on February the 11th, by which time he would be out of the hospital and expected at a guest at the banquet with which she always celebrated. And her birthday dinners, as he knew full well, were just as stupendous as those at Christmas. It was a possibility that froze his feet and caused both his chins to tremble. Only one course lay before him. Whatever the price involved, he must continue on his way to his aunt's residence and there tuck, though with a heavy heart, into the caviar, the turtle soup, the turkey, the plum pudding, the mince pies, the biscuit tortoni, the hot rolls of butter and crystallized fruit, washing them down with champagne, hock, port, and liqueurs. If the worst happened, he reflected, for he was a philosophical man, it would be just one more grave among the hills. It was in no buoyant mood that he exchanged Christmas greetings with his aunt in her ornate drawing room. There was, he noted, even more of her than when they had last met. She too had started life as a bouncing baby, and from there had grown into a globular girl, finishing up as one of the 3 stoutest women in the W1 Postal Division of London. He delivered his Christmas gift, and in return, she pressed into his hand an oblong slip of paper. The money for your partnership, dear. It would have seemed incredible to anyone seeing Egbert that he was capable of swelling with ecstasy any more than he was swelling already. But at these words, his nose quivered, his ears wiggled, his eyes, usually devoid of any expression whatsoever, shone like twin stars. He had not felt such a gush of elation since his 11th birthday, when someone had given him a box of chocolates, and he had devoured the top layer, supposing that that was the end, and then had found there was a second layer lurking underneath. How can I thank you? I thought you would be pleased, dear, but now I am afraid I have a little disappointment for you. Do you read a magazine called Pure Diet and World Redemption? Is that the one that has all those pictures of girls without any clothes on? No, that is Playboy. I subscribe to that regularly. This one is all about vegetarianism. A copy was left here by mistake last week. I glanced at it idly, and my whole outlook became changed. It said vegetarianism was an absolute, vital, essential prerequisite to a new order of civilization in which humanity will have become truly humane. Egbert, as far as was possible for one of his stoutness, leapt in his chair. Do you mind? It said that only thus can there come peace on earth, with a cessation of wars, the abolition of crime, diseases, insanity, poverty, and oppression. And you can't say that wouldn't be nice, can you, dear? Do you mean that you have become a vegetarian? Yes, dear. There won't be any turkey tonight? I'm afraid not. No turtle soup, no mince pies? I know how disappointed you must be. Disappointed. I couldn't be more pleased. I've just become a vegetarian myself. Well, practically. I wouldn't touch a turkey with a 10-foot pole. What shall we be having for dinner? To start with, seaweed soup, most nutritious, Then mock, salmon, it is vegetable marrow, colored pink, splendid, followed by nut cutlets with spinach, capital, and an orange with split one, no, one each. A positive banquet. God bless us, everyone. He had a feeling that he had heard that before somewhere, but we cannot all be original, and it seemed to him to sum up the situation about as neatly as a situation could be summed up. Although winter brings a number of holidays, they share common threads, as brought to light by Gershon Wolfe, Alfonso Severus, Eli Hecht, and Alec Wilder. Messages of Liberation, a poem for Kwanzaa. Hopes and prayers soar in aspiration in this season of heightened anticipation, when diverse cultures in our great nation await their holidays with eager expectation. Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, in ideation, all festivals of light, their candles lit with jubilation in awareness of their symbolic inspiration. Fervent flames proclaiming messages of liberation midst the darkness of December's nocturnal hibernation. And from its accompanying spiritual malaise and dislocation, blazing a path to renew mankind's power of imagination, rekindling our sense of wonder at God's purposeful creation. Kwanzaa. It is the light of candles that shines briefly after a long journey of darkness that empowers my soul and proclaims my place in the culture of humanity. It is the sounds that vibrate across the earth with an echo that whisper and sings my song. It is the smell of nameless souls once long gone that was cast out of the family of man whose scent dwells beneath my skin. It is the taste of the pain of yesterday with the flavor of hope for tomorrow proclaiming, here I stand. It is the touching of my heart with your heart in joyful celebration of the sacrifice of our ancestors. The miracle of Bubby's menorah. My sweet grandmother is a small woman, barely 5 feet tall. Her 2-foot tall candelabra was more than just a candle holder. It was a family symbol, a magnet that brought us all together. On Shabbat evenings, Bubby would don a special kerchief. With great fanfare, she would light each candle. When she finished lighting the last candle, she stood in front of the candelabra and closed her eyes. Tears ran down her cheeks. She prayed, dearest Father, watch over my husband, children, and grandchildren. Watch over us all. When she finished her prayer, we began our Shabbat. As our family grew, Bubby spent more time with her candles. By the time she reached her 94th birthday, there were 5 generations in Bubby's family. When lighting the candles, Bubby prayed for each family member. Her candelabra was made of solid silver with a heavy silver base. All year round, it had 3 branches of 2 candlesticks. In the middle was a stem for another candle. The traditional custom for Shabbat Eve is to light 1 candle each for the father, mother, and children. As each child is born, another candle is added to the Shabbat lighting. Throughout the year, Bubby's candelabra was fitted for 5 candles. During the week of Hanukkah, she added another branch of 2 candlesticks each, making a total of 9 candles. The candelabra was built in such a way that the candle holders could be removed and oil cups could be inserted for the special lighting on Hanukkah. Our Shabbat candelabra became a menorah. During the week of Hanukkah, she gave her prized candelabra to my grandfather to light candles for the holiday. Hanukkah was our happiest time. All the children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren came to Bubby and Zadie to receive Hanukkah gelt and join in the menorah lighting. When Zadie died, Bubby would spend her winters in Miami Beach. She took her candelabra with her. Every Shabbat, Bubby would shine the silver candelabra and pray, "May my mazel always shine." All this came to an end when someone stole her menorah. Bubby was livid. How could anyone steal it? Her only concern was how she would light her candles. She believed the menorah would return. "I have prayed that the menorah would protect us, and I'm sure that the menorah has done just that. Now I pray that the menorah protect us and be returned to me." With silent determination, she prayed and prayed. Unexpectedly, a childhood friend visited us and announced, "I never saw another menorah like yours until today. Surprisingly, I saw a replica of your menorah in the window of a gift store." Could it be that our guest had seen the stolen menorah? Bubby jumped back and said, "Let's get my menorah back. It soon will be Hanukkah and I need the menorah back." Bubby, my parents, Bubby's friend, and a policeman made their way to the gift shop. With a gleam in her eyes and a shout of joy, Bubby pointed to her menorah and said to it, "Yes, you have done well. You have protected us and now you have protected yourself. Come back home with me." Before anyone could say anything, Bubby grabbed the menorah off the shelf and held it close to her heart. Neighbors, Jewish and non, joined Bubby in her triumphant walk home. The closer she neared home, more and more people joined her. Bubby, with her slight frame, carrying a menorah almost as big as her, followed by a procession of excited family and friends, was a sight to see. It truly was a grand Hanukkah parade. The menorah was given a special cleaning, and that Hanukkah was the brightest in Bubby's home. Who says that miracles don't happen anymore? Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. Now out of the night, new as the dawn, into this light, this child, innocent child, soft as a fawn, this child is born. One small heart, one pair of eyes, one work of art here in my arms. Here he lies, trusting and warm. Blessed this morn a child is born. Sleep in heavenly peace. With respect for and acknowledgement of whatever holiday you and your loved ones celebrate during the season, the calendar provides most with the start of a new year on January 1st. As we look ahead, Maya Angelou and Neil Gaiman offered thoughtful insight for this holiday season and approaching New Year. I have learned that no matter what happens or how bad it seems today, life does go on and it will be better tomorrow. I've learned that you can tell a lot about a person in the way that he or she handles these three things: a rainy day, lost luggage, and tangled Christmas tree lights. I've learned that making a living is not the same as making a life. I've learned that life sometimes gives you a second chance. I've learned that whenever I make a decision with an open heart, I usually make the right decision. I've learned that every day you should reach out and touch someone. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I hope you will have a wonderful year and that you'll dream dangerously and outrageously. That you will make something that didn't exist before you made it. That you will be loved and you will be liked, and that you will have people to love and like in return. And most importantly, because I think there should be more kindness and wisdom in the world right now, that you will, when you need to be wise, and that you will always be kind. Best wishes to you all for a very happy, healthy holiday season and New Year.
And I thank Kate Beckman for presenting this wonderful holiday event to you, our library audience, for you coming and joining us. And on behalf of the library and myself, I wish all of you, of course, a tremendous and joyful holiday season, however you may celebrate. And again, thank you all. Keep an eye on the library's newsletter for upcoming events. And of course, keep an eye out for the things that the Port Washington Play Troupe will be doing and what Kate will be up to. And we hope that we will, of course, have more events from Play Troupe and from Kate in the future. Thank you all for coming out this evening. Everyone stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend. And if we don't meet again before the holidays, may your holidays be beautiful ones. See you all soon. Thank you.